Okay, so it's getting to that time of the year again where many people will start to hit the gym, aiming to develop muscle hypertrophy and perhaps strength throughout the colder winter period. So I thought I'd make a video just to summarize how to train for muscle hypertrophy, how to resistance train in general, whether you are a newbie, a novice, a beginner, or whether you've been training for quite a while. Just some areas of interest and some pointers so that you can maximize your training and develop the adaptation of muscle hypertrophy. So a lot of the research around muscle hypertrophy is very nuanced, and it will be very dependent on multiple factors. So to give an individual prescription without knowing an individual is difficult. However, there are some general guidelines that have come out of the data, basically. So way back when I was doing my personal training certifications, we were pretty much set on the rep range of 8 to 12 reps for muscle hypertrophy training. So when it comes to resistance training, the 8 to 12 rep mark was seen as the gem for muscle hypertrophy, and anything under that would be leaning too far towards strength gains as opposed to hypertrophy. They're two different adaptations. Anything above 12 reps would either be largely wasted, or it would be targeting muscle endurance, which supposedly is different to muscle hypertrophy, different muscle fibers, etc. We now know that that is largely incorrect. The number of reps in any given working set can vary widely, even going up to as high as 30 repetitions. So the key thing, rather than focusing on a set number of repetitions, if we can take the working sets to the point of overload, so typically that will be technical failure, so 1 to 2 reps in reserve. We don't want to be going to failure all the time, because complete failure will just deplete us of anything more that we can give. It will more than likely decrease overall volume because we're training with so much intensity in every working set. I'll go more into that later in this video, but generally speaking, rep ranges can vary anywhere up to around 30 repetitions. What we want to be getting is that key term, progressive overload. So essentially what that is in the first week of your training, perhaps you can do 10 repetitions at 60 kilograms. Doesn't matter what the exercise is. Could be a squat, could be a bench press, could be shoulder press, anything. And whatever that is, you progress that over time. So basically equating more volume, the load could go up where we are progressing in the metric of more weight on the bar. It could be the number of repetitions that go up in each working set. The whole idea is progressive overload. So from where you start in your training periodization program, whatever it is that you're following, you want to see a increase over time. Because if you did the exact same amount and repeated that workout again and again and again, there's no progression. So you're not giving the stimulus for growth. Whilst we're here, we might as well state what that stimulus is. So muscle hypertrophy doesn't actually occur in the workout, it occurs after. So you're breaking the muscle down in your workout, and then through recovery periods outside of the gym, the muscle repairs. Okay, and that's how it becomes larger. How you get that adaptation is the recovery after breaking down the muscle. So you've got to provide a stimulus, which is why you need tension, so mechanical tension through resistance training. Now, resistance training doesn't have to be large weights, okay? It doesn't have to be heavy weights. The heavier the weight, if it's low repetitions, so we're talking like close to 1 rep maxes, you're going to see more of a strength adaptation, so neural strength, so central nervous system, as opposed to hypertrophy, although there will be carryover. So again, rep scheme can vary. Progressive overload, we want to be increasing volume, generally speaking, over time. So MRV, maximal recoverable volume. That is a key term to think about. So you want to be putting in as much volume into your workouts that you can adequately recover from and come back again. So returning to something I said earlier, if you're going 10 out of 10 in every working set, taking it to complete failure, and you're doing, say, 2 to 3 sets of that, complete failure, okay, you're really pushing the envelope, you'll come out of that workout and you will feel trashed, and the muscles will take a long time to repair. You will likely experience DOMS, which is delayed onset of muscle soreness. Now, DOMS doesn't necessarily mean that you've created the greatest amount of hypertrophy or the greatest potential hypertrophy, but it does mean that it's going to take longer to recover from. So therefore, overall volume may decline because you've pushed it so hard in one session. You're then having to wait to recover for a longer period outside of the gym, when if you had scaled back and maybe kept 1 to 2 reps in reserve, but still got to the point of overload where there was tension going through the joint and the muscle, and you took it to the point where there was stimulation rather than annihilation, you may have been able to train again in a couple of days' time and got an equal stimulus in that session, and therefore the overall volume is greater. So that's something to bear in mind. Training harder and harder and harder, like to failure in every working set, isn't always the best protocol. So there are lots of ways to train once you're in the gym. The overall structure of what you're doing, that's the periodization. So what you'll largely see, if you're doing resistance training for hypertrophy, it's going to be some kind of undulating periodization. So you're not just going to train the same muscle every day of the week. So you'd likely go for like an upper-lower split, train the upper body in one session, train the lower body in the next, and just rotate that. Or you might go for the push-pull legs split, if you've got the time to do 3 sessions per week, say. And that's, so you're changing the muscle groups that are working, basically, so they have enough time to recover for the next session. You might go whole body, especially if you're quite new to the gym. Whole body approach is fantastic. So you will target both the push mechanisms, the pull mechanisms, the legs, core, the lot. And when you're starting out, you won't need as much volume to create an adaptation. The neural adaptation from training when you start out is incredible. It's insane. So you will see growth, gains, and hypertrophy from a whole body approach. You can become more specific as you progress, but to start off with, there is absolutely nothing wrong with a whole body approach. Compound exercises are probably going to be better to start off with. If you're an experienced lifter, then isolation exercises as well. As you progress, combine the both. So what you could do is you could do a bench press or a shoulder press. So that's your push. So that'll be, pecs, shoulders, deltoids, triceps predominantly. And then you could go into like a tricep extension. And that kind of, if you paired the two like that, that's actually called a post-exhaust set. So if you did literally the bench press and then went straight into tricep extensions, you're going from a compound to an isolation, and that's called a post-exhaust. That's if they're combined, so you go one to the other. You can also do drop sets. You can do pre-exhaust, so you could have reversed that and done a tricep extension and then a bench press, so that you're working the triceps in and of itself before you do the compound exercise. And there are many other ways that you can train once you're in the gym. but again, far more nuanced than is probably necessary for this video. So reps, sets, the reps can vary, the number of sets can actually vary. Do you really need to equate? Do you really need to progress with several sets? If the intensity of the set is declining, there's not much need to do another set. So what I mean by that is, if you've done a warm-up set and you've progressed up to a working weight and you've done 1 or 2 sets to technical failure, maybe with a rep in reserve, is there much point in then doing another set where you either decrease the load so much, or you don't go anywhere near failure, or you just do a couple of reps? I would say you're probably, in a way, wasting time by doing that. Get to the working sets, to technical failure, 1 to 2 reps in reserve. If you really want to push the envelope, you go to failure, although you want to make sure correct technique, correct form, stable, fluid motion, under control throughout, and full range of motion. Now, this is something that's kind of people go back and forward with. Do you need full range of motion, partial range, lengthened or shortened? If you can go for a full range of motion under control, that is going to be the most efficacious way of training for resistance training and for hypertrophy. Strength gains can be gained through different ranges of motion, and it tends to see some kind of efficacy in the lengthened ranges, but I wouldn't eliminate the full range of motion just for the lengthened range of motion that you want to train in. Full range of motion under control, that's going to yield the best benefits. And also it really helps for proprioception, so the mind-muscle connection. If you're just starting out, or if you're have been in the gym for a while, it's still beneficial to get, whether it's a free weight or a machine weight, to actually engage the mind to the muscle that is working. And if you can go through controlled tempo, full range of motion, you can really connect with that muscle, and that is going to be beneficial not just from a hypertrophy standpoint, but from an injury prevention standpoint, because you're loading through a full range of motion first and foremost, so you can control in them deeper ranges, but you are also aware of how your body's moving. There is a lot to say about that, the mind-muscle connection. So is there anything else that we might need to discuss? To be honest, in this video, probably not. So yeah, hypertrophy training, a lot of people are going to go back into the gym this winter and they're going to train resistance training, hypertrophy. You don't need to max out your lifts. You don't need to load the bar as heavy as you possibly can. Lower rep ranges will actually increase strength because you've got the force velocity curve, which you'll be able to see in my other videos. If you're maxing out for strength, it's a neural adaptation. You will get a bit of hypertrophy carryover, don't get me wrong, but for hypertrophy, really we want to be getting to our maximal recoverable volume. We want to be progressively overloading the exercises, full range of motion, under control, and with correct technique, and trying to get to the point of technical failure. So we don't have a technique breakdown, but we are getting close to failure, perhaps with a rep or 2 in reserve. And then resting adequately outside of the gym. That's something that is absolutely critical, because that's where the muscle is going to repair. Okay, so hopefully this has been beneficial. I may expand on it in more videos, and there are some previous videos of mine where certain elements of this video are discussed in greater detail. So take this on board, get yourself back in the gym, and let's hope to see some hypertrophy gains.